have one, because I'm just going to make a quick comment. But so tell us about this rod and reel setup.
So, you know, something that's super lightweight but extremely powerful that we can go out there and just have tremendous amounts of fun catching snappers, groupers, jacks, all on something that's very, very lightweight and just easy to fish with, and a fun way of fishing.
So what's the retail value on that?
Oh, about between 7 and 8.
That's not bad.
No.
So you guys make these gaffs in-house, right?
We make those gaffs in my garage.
Right. So we're going to have just a quick raise of a hand. If somebody wants to try this, we're going to give this rod and reel away tonight.
What? We're good.
If you can juggle these for 5 minutes and not stick yourself or drop one.
He's going to be like some circus guy from the back or something.
Are you raising your hand, Doc?
No, I got too many holes already.
All right. All right, so I'm Todd. Thank you guys for coming tonight. This is the 4th of the season already.
Yep.
So the 4th of the season, the turnout just continues to surprise me. These are very educational. They're a lot of fun, and they're not too long-winded, right? When I did skip out on the last seminar, I showed back up at the end, and I was so surprised at the group of people that were around these two gentlemen. Two separate groups of probably 10 people a person, you know, just Q&A after the seminar. And I thought, man, we never had that in the past. People stick around, 1 or 2 people. But what I suggest you all do is Q&A some of these beautiful pieces of fiberglass in here. Because I know, I mean, what does a new boat do for you? Does it make you happy?
Yeah, it goes back to when I was in high school, and growing up, I did not have a cool car. And then something happened to that car, which my parents still blame me for and think I did on purpose. But when it came to get a new car, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to pay for it anyway. At least I can pay for something that I want. So you're still going to have a car payment or whatever, for me anyway. So for me, if I'm paying for something that I like, it's a lot easier to write the check at the end of the month. And I don't work here. I'm just a fisherman.
Right. So has anybody in here ever had to justify a reason to have something? Sounds like this guy has, and I know you guys have too. I just want to remind you that, you know, we support local business. I have a pair of glasses I don't have on right now because I just got off the boat where we caught some redfish, but I wouldn't go to another optometrist other than Dr. Rain just because of his support, right? And it's a local thing, it's a cool thing, and nothing's changed in this dealership from when I started at it. Well, there's a little bit of change. 20 years ago in a single wide trailer with 5 employees, right? We had a $1 million floor plan, and we had like 10 Centuries and Pro Lines and a dirt lot where the pool and the yacht club is now. But we still do local things, and we fish locally. And I will not buy a piece of tackle from I don't care if I'm in a fix and I got to run right up the corner to get something. I'd rather drive down into Destin 2 or 3 miles to go buy something from Tim and his family. And every single time that I suggest a charter now, I suggest Mark and his company, 30A light tackle, right?
Yes.
So just a reminder, give us a shot, right? Sometimes just give us an opportunity to earn your business. We have a gentleman here that just said, man, I'd love to stay on the microphone tonight. He didn't really say that, I suggested it. And tell you about my experience, you know, because these boats are built by human beings, and sometimes when you introduce salt air environment, water conditions, and human error, sometimes your boat does what? Breaks. Parts on your boat, the components fail, and this gentleman just had a great story of how, you know, kudos to Legendary, not only on the sales side, the salesperson side, the captain side, but the service department. And that's what we love to hear. And he went on and gave us a 5-star review on Google, and the first one he's ever given. And I mean, he can't be a year younger than 60. So, I mean, that's a long, long life without giving a 5-star review. I'm just kidding. But just food for thought. You know, when you're in here, take advantage of the fact that we have inventory like crazy right now. And not all the stores in our industry have inventory. They just don't. We happen to. We planned for this 2 years ago. We planned for it a year ago, and we're on top of it. So we have what you need. And if you're in the market, your motor's a little run down, maybe we do repowers, let's repower it. But if you've got old technology, one thing I've learned in the last year is someone will come in with a Simrad unit, a Garmin unit, a Raymarine unit, and it's a 2017 boat, and they can't replace the unit because the technology doesn't work with whatever they have on the boat. And that's how quick technology's changed. So sometimes we'll get repower people to come in and say, look, I just want to put a pair of twin 250s on my boat, you know, but your bottom machine's not going to read right, and your GPS isn't going to work correctly, and all these things are just outdated. So that's where you come into this building and meet with us, and we'll change that for you. So, but thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to turn it over to them, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. So bottom fishing, you know, it's coming fast.
Oh, it's here.
It's here. And it looks like after today that maybe the wind machine is going to get turned off for a little while.
It looks great.
Because I don't know about for everybody else, but by golly, it's been blowing this spring. I think, you know, I can tell you how many times I've canceled stuff this spring. So
I don't want to talk about that.
but the weather does look to be improving a lot. So we should be good to go now.
And I think the hotter it gets, I mean, I don't want to get too nerdy about my background or why I think the heat helps, but the hotter it is, the less the wind blows until the afternoon. So I always kind of wait. Springs end up taking a long time for me, but the hotter it gets, the wind dies down a lot.
Yeah, but I remember last June, you know, because normally we get hot in July and August and September. We know that. I did not enjoy those 2 weeks of Africa hot last June.
There's 3 seasons of Tim. There's I can't wait to get back fishing. I like fishing, and it's too hot to go fishing.
No, it's too cold to go fishing.
Oh yeah, ain't too cold.
Yeah.
So too hot. Yeah,
Yeah.
The just right thing only happens for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm more on too cold than too hot. I hate too cold, but anyway, you know, some things, you know, we're going to talk about a lot tonight, and you'll remember a lot and you'll forget a lot. But here, this is just a few things, some keys that you want to, you know, whether it's learning it tonight or going out there and doing some research or coming up and asking us questions, but learning how to fish natural bottom. If you just rely solely on fishing structure, you're not going to be as successful, especially when it comes to other species other than red snappers. We got to be able to fish some bottom. You know, a heading sensor for your boat. For those that don't know what a heading sensor is, they only cost a couple $100, but when you're looking at your little boat on the screen and the spot is over to the side and you go to turn the wheel, the boat starts to move, but the little boat on the screen is still moving forward. Well, the heading sensor will cut that lag time down and help you to get over the spot faster. Having either a trolling motor or some system like Helm Master that has spot lock on your boat, so you don't have to sit there and use the motors to try to hold over a spot. You know, being able to fish vertical. Mark's favorite thing on the list.
I'll just interrupt. I have learned a ton from you, more than I would have ever learned on my own. But when I was sitting in this crowd 5 or 6 years ago, this was not on there. So having number 5 on here just makes my whole day.
I almost put it as number 9 on a separate page. But learn to fish lighter, learn to chum, have a variety of bait. Don't rely on one source or one type of bait. And then last month's seminar we talked a lot about, so we're not going to touch a lot on that tonight, but learn how to slow pitch jig. Those are your keys to catching more and bigger fish bottom fishing.
Especially number 5.
And then always for bottom fishing, always have this bird on board.
All right, I take back everything nice that I said.
See, there's my little bird. And my favorite lunch is peanut butter and jelly and banana sandwich. You don't catch fish without these. Right, Mark?
I just want to know whose boat you're going fishing on for the rest of the year.
This is my favorite little fisherman right here. This is my little fishing buddy. His name is Fisher, and I don't know if I got the really good picture of him on here. But anyway, this particular grouper, his name is very fitting. His name is Fisher. He's 11, and he wants to do everything. And he caught this grouper last year, and we had all the snappers we needed, and we're fishing inshore. We were still in state waters, and I said, Fisher, we don't need any more snappers. You got to catch me a grouper. And he goes, all right, Mr. Tim. And he's the one that wants to go over to the live well, dip his own bait out, get his bait, hook it on, drop it down. Well, he hooks this thing, and God meant for him to catch this fish, because anybody else, he fought this little grouper's only, what, maybe 12, 15 pounds. Well, he fought it for 20 minutes, and the sharks and the porpoises didn't get it. But thankfully, he had that little life jacket on, because I have him fish right here beside me. And we've got him trained up because he's fishing with expensive gear, and it's like, do not let the rod go. He was going over. I grabbed him by the life jacket and put him back in the boat. But he's my little fishing machine. That's him and his sister. You know, Mark's sitting here twiddling his de-hooker right here. You know, the little de-hookers, this is an item you can't, I won't leave the dock if we don't have 2 of these. It's just a tool we talk about all the time, but you need to have a minimum of 2 of these on the boat. Hand gaff, de-hooker, it does everything.
And I have to say, because we had the group return them right. I don't know if you guys saw it on our social media and all the posts and all that, and we've got a ton of giveaways that they've given us. I just want to point out that these fish are dead and we're keeping them. These are awesome de-hookers, but sometimes it's been a little bit of a learning curve for me, and I know the guys are watching, and Nick, if you are watching, I just want to point out that they're awesome de-hookers and hand gaffs for fish that you keep.
Right. And so why don't you tell them about the rig 'em right stuff?
So after, I guess, April 1st, there's a legal law, to require the use of either a vent tool or a descending device on the boat. So you not only have to have it, but it has to be rigged and ready to use. For me personally, I find a vent tool to be the easiest. It's small, it's in my little tackle tray, it's close, but I do have a variety of different descending devices and a bunch of giveaways to give at the end of this stuff too on how to safely release these fish. And that's a result of barotrauma. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about if you've ever caught a snapper before and his stuff's hanging out of his mouth or his stomach's all protruded. Like you guys, we'll get to that, I guess, when we're giving stuff away and kind of show you what they look like and all that.
Yeah, but we have, am I right that we're going to have a little kit that everybody can call in? And
so in those koozies that were handed out to you guys, there's a QR code on the side of it, but there's a sticker on the inside and there's a card. I have 2 full kits to give away. They're about $100 value. But if you go to that website, if you scan that QR code or go to that website, there's a video to watch and a form to fill out where you will get that $100 kit anyway. So it's a cool device, and I'll show it to you guys later in this stuff. And like I said, there's plenty to give away. Unless you have?
No, I was going to go, I got the de-hooker video.
And if anybody didn't get one of those koozies with the sticker or the card in it, just come up afterwards and let me know, because we've got plenty of them. But pretty much all you guys will end up, and they've got a big heavy weight in them too, so it's kind of impractical to have that many weights up here. But once you guys watch that video and fill out the form, they'll send you guys the weight, the kit, all that stuff too, which you're legally required to have on the boat anyway.
Let it go away. Whoa! turn that off. But this is how the little de-hooker works. You just hook it on the hook, pick the fish up, put downward pressure on it, and just twist. The fish will flip right off.
And it's especially good when you're mingo fishing, which we'll get into tonight, I guess, mingos. But with all those triggers, I mean, you guys have tried to get a hook out of a trigger fish before, and you know you're going to catch 5,000, 13.5 to 14-inch trigger fish anyway. So, and I love Kayla, but she hates trigger fish now because she's so sick of those 14-inchers.
You're just not fishing the deep enough water. You know, we've got all kind of fish pictures. Something one y'all want to go back to? Mingos, triggers, red groupers, scamp, black snapper, the black snapper bite's really turning on good right now.
I keep a note at the end of every trip. I have a little, I mean, normally I would just write it on my calendar, easy, because I'm lazy at the end of the day, and maybe or maybe not have a little buzz. But just write down what I caught and where. And I always look at those notes to see what's going on. And last year it was around the first week of May when my black snapper bite got good. Mm-hmm. And I know some of the other boats, some guys have had good black snapper bites the last 2 weeks or so. Yep. But for me, I was kind of waiting for May 1st.
You know, I want to throw a plug in here for Alex Fogg with the county on the job that they're doing. This is just a list of some of the new wrecks that they've put out there for us this year. There's one that's not on here that they just got out this past week or two ago, the Courageous. If anybody needs the numbers, you know, they're on the Okaloosa County website, but I can send them to you if you don't have them. I actually have them on where I can put it on a little card and email it to you for an upload. But Alex and the county have done a fantastic job. We have one of the best reef building programs in the state and in the Gulf right now. I have talked to Alex some. You know, one of the things that we talk about when we talk about our trolling things are the offshore fads. They are working on a closer set of fads. We're probably 3 years out on that program. It's much more involved to get them permitted for the shallower water, but they are actively working on it. It's already in the stages where they've submitted paperwork, and they feel real confident that we'll have that in somewhere in that 2 to 4 year range. So Alex Fogg and the county they're doing an excellent job. So you use a trolling motor a lot.
Oh, for sure. I can't imagine what fishing was. I know one guy that I go fishing with who doesn't have a trolling motor, and it makes it a lot more difficult. With the older boat, doesn't have the electronic steering or anything. Mm-hmm. But for me, I mean, if you can park directly over the fish and not worry about drifting or positioning the boat or anything like that, it makes it a lot easier to catch them.
If you're fishing next to a boat that doesn't have, say, helm master or trolling motor, how many more snapper are you catching?
All of them.
That it is an item. If you don't have it, it will, you know, adding that to your arsenal will add to the number of fish you catch. One is that you'll stay on top of the spot, which is very important. One of the things that was in the keys is being able to fish vertical. Well, we can only fish vertical if the boat is positioned over the wreck or piece of bottom.
And for me, I've had a couple charters the past couple years where, and my boat was put through the ringer over the last 5 years. Like it went through a lot. And there were 2 days, I think you were on the boat for one of them when I lost GPS. But there were a couple days where I looked at the guys on the boat and I was like, look, I just lost my trolling motor. Give me a half hour. I promise this will make the whole rest of the day a lot easier for everybody if you just give me a half hour to play with this and try to figure it out. And there's not that many things that can go wrong on them. So they're pretty easy. But it's such a big deal for us on our boat that I'd rather ask the people for a half hour to just see if I can fix it real quick than to try to fish the rest of the day without it. And normally you can fix them.
I was looking for on my phone. Am I too far down? Oh. relief shading. If anybody who doesn't know what relief shading is, it's an add-on for your Garmin or your Simrad, depending on which one you have, will determine the cost. Come on, load up. So this is a little area that I have. This is about 70 miles down to the southeast. But when you look at this little line of spots right here, you'll notice that they kind of somewhat correlate to the contour lines on the bottom, on the regular fishing chart. But when we turn on what's called relief shading, now those spots, you can see that they sit right on top of a ridge. Well, you could technically drive down to this ridge and start up here at the top end of this and just kind of work your way down the ridge and not actually have the numbers.
Yeah, you probably thought that was the...
This is, of course, is back to the natural bottom part. You know, we need to learn how to use these ridges, and these fish that are on natural bottom, you know, when they're on a wreck, they're constantly oriented to the wreck. Well, those fish are easily picked off. These fish on these natural bottom ledges are constantly on the move. So they may be halfway between the two numbers, but being able to see that in real time while you're out there fishing. And so Garmin, it's the Navionics Plus, and if you have Simrad, you'll need like the
Seymour or Strike
Seymour.
Lines?
Yeah, Seymour.
And Garmin just released an update like a week or two ago. Just something to think about.
But
Or don't get it and I'll catch all the fish. There's some spots out here. Yeah, they'll show on there when you look at it before you purchase it. It'll show where the update is. But too, also on those spots, like there's one spot in particular, and I'm not telling you where it is because it's public and you guys probably all know it, but if you go and look at it, there's no fish on the chart. And I'm like, guys, trust me, just drop some bait down and you get some bait in the water and those, all of a sudden you look back at the chart and there's just, it's a Christmas tree of fish everywhere. So I think that ridge is a good example of it. I think if you started putting bait in the water, that's a little bit deeper. Yeah, it's a little bit deeper, but you get bait in the water, then just look back at your chart and see what it looks like.
you know, and like Mark was talking about, just mentioned, you know, on natural bottom, I want you to forget about this side of the screen for a minute. You know, we're looking on this side, we're in 210 feet of water right here, and we have our hard bottom, and then we have all the little bit of yellow fuzz, and then we have just a few shows of fish on the screen. Well, by splitting the screen on this side, where we're only looking at the bottom 30 feet, those fish look much more predominant. Most people will drive past this and not fish, but if they just had it blown up to where they were looking at the bottom, they may stop. But when we pull up on a wreck, the fish are all up in the water column above the wreck, but when we're on natural bottom, there's little coral heads and rocks and ledges and everything is kind of up underneath there. This is the exact same spot 10 minutes later. We started dropping baits down and everybody came out of hiding. But it's the exact same spot. It's just 10 minutes later after we started fishing. And most of you, I feel like, if you did not have this zoomed in where you saw at least a little something, would probably drive right by that and go, there's no fish there. And those aren't snappers. Those aren't triggerfish. Those are groupers.
And another thing too, and I don't know what's in your slideshow and what you're going through. One thing I've done a lot lately on my boat, everyone has their settings set to auto gain. I've backed off on that a lot, and I like seeing the fuzz. I like having some noise in here. I like having the fuzz. And if you play with it one day, just turn it up and keep turning it up until you get all that fuzz and all that stuff, and then drop your bait in the water, drop your jig in the water, and tell me if you don't see that thing go down. and you'll see the bait or your jig or your bait or whatever go down, and you'll see fish come up and look at it. You'll see a lot more stuff. And I think sometimes it's like looking at the Matrix where there's just numbers coming by or whatever those symbols are and all kinds of stuff going on. But turn your gain up and just keep an eye on what's actually going on down there sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's always a good idea to turn the gain all the way up and work from just a fuzzed out screen and work down instead of going all the way down and trying to work up.
And most people just leave it on auto, which works. And you'll see, and I think these pictures to me look like they were taken on auto gain.
Most of these are.
Because it's so clean. I think sometimes having all that fuzz in there, you'd be surprised with how much actual other stuff that you see. That's crazy though.
But you look at this, when you look over here on this side, and this is in 290, that almost looks like nothing. But when I'm looking at the bottom 30 feet, this is a little place some of us call the Christmas trees. The old timers like myself, we call this the 750 bottom. This is down, this is about 60 miles from Destin, but it's down a little past the Alaska is where this area is. But it's called the 750 bottom because back in the days of a low ran, it was on like a 37 750 and a 47 750. That's where the 750 bottom number came from. But this is, learning to use your electronics. Rods, reels, hooks, all this is secondary if we can't find the fish.
And you know what it's like if you drift, and Kayla gets mad at me when we get to a spot, and I tell guys on the boat, like, just bear with me for 5 minutes while I drive in circles and try to make everybody as sick as I can before I actually hit my spot lock. Because if you're 20 feet off, it makes a big difference. And I leave a scope on my boat, mainly because it helps when people are looking at the screen, they're like, what are we looking at? And you're like, well, this is history, this is what you've driven over, but a scope is an option too, and I don't know.
I don't know if I actually have one that has it turned on.
Basically, a scope is just a column on the very far right side, and at the bottom of it, it'll say, in this, what are we in?
421?
It would probably say like 100 feet, and that's the diameter of the cone at the bottom, because sonar comes out in a cone. A scope is directly what your sonar's seeing at that time under the boat. And then all this stuff in the background is history. So like in this instance, your A scope would show pretty much nothing because you're a little bit off of the spot. But I've grown to leave that on in engineering, and I'm a nerd on my boat. And if I have my sonar set up right, my trolling motor rigged up right, I think we can catch a lot more fish if I can see them under the boat.
Yep, I agree 100%.
And it's also super frustrating if you can see them on the screen and you're like, guys, look on the chart, and people are like, oh my God, why aren't we hooking any? That definitely happens too. So, like once.
And like what I said earlier, the fish on natural bottom, they're going to be hugged to the bottom. This is just this happens to be a set of 4 chicken coops that's out there in 420 feet of water. And you can see how we have the coops and we have snappers basically all the way to the surface. I mean, you can literally, this is in 421 feet of water. You do not need a sinker to catch snappers here.
What's the first thing you do there?
First thing I do there?
Drop a jig.
I throw a fly line out because there's probably going to be a tuna or mine. But a jig will work, throwing over some chum. There's no reason that, even though we should never drop all the way into this, mess down here, because all these fish down here, they're this size. These fish up here are this size. If you just drop it down 100 feet and catch these, the bite will be a little slower, but the quality of the fish will be much better. But once you drop all the way to the bottom and you hook the little guys, they're going to come all the way to the top following the other one.
Would you say it's safe to say that if you were dropping a bait or something, drop it a little bit down, and then if you don't get a bite, let it down farther,
right.
Then let it down farther, and instead of
4 Mississippis, stop. And 6 Mississippis, stop.
Instead of the guys, and I had one trip, and this was hysterical. We had 4 guys on the boat. It was middle of snapper season like 4 years ago, and one of the guys caught 7 of the keeper snappers. And I was like, what are you doing differently than everybody else? And he was like, oh, I let my lead hit the bottom, and I reel up 25 times. And I was like, sorry, tell me that again. And he was like, I let it go to the bottom and I reel up 25 times. And I was like, we're in 70 feet of water. So I was like, can you just show me that? And he reeled it up and you could see his bait in the water and all the snapper were directly underneath the boat. So I was like, all right, everybody. And they were like, oh, we dropped down and reeled up 25 times? I was like, no. Just literally let it go in the water. They're right underneath the boat. But it happens.
Yeah. I would, and like I say, you go catch bigger fish and more fish. You know, and learning to differentiate, you know, the snappers are going to show up much better. But when you have this clutter, this is mingos. That's just almost pure triggerfish. It's the learning what you're looking at helps to help you out. And that's as
That's from my boat.
that's about 1 million Jack Crevalles, if I remember
No, those
right.
are all red snapper. That was my boat. I took that picture. That was
I
red
thought that was the day you had all them.
No,
Jack
I know exactly.
Crevalles.
I know exactly where that was. That was all red snapper.
Okay. That is a lot.
Yeah, that's mine. The 75H. That's my old boat.
And notice that's in 80 feet of water.
Yeah, so drop it down to the bottom and reel up 25 times.
I think if you dropped it anywhere on that one, it doesn't really matter if you're on the bottom or the top.
And last year, we made it. Snapper season was 55 days last year, right?
Yeah.
I made it until the last day before we used leads to catch snappers. It was awesome. And I didn't bring up a rod, and I have a different idea on how I want to do stuff this year, and I told you about it. We're going to fish a lot lighter this year if I can. A lot more, if lighter, yeah, right? We made it almost all year without having to use leads in state water in close for our keeper snappers.
I wonder if, in this one you'll notice this is natural bottom. These fish aren't on a wreck. I wonder, is that, oh, stop, go back. I don't know how to do it on my iPad. I was wondering if that one showed the GPS number on that.
No, of course, I would not send you a picture with a GPS. Trust me, I know Tim.
Yeah.
We'll get there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that. It's awesome.
This is a good example. Last year, snapper season opened on a full moon, and everybody was complaining the first week of snapper season, there's no snappers. On the full moon, I can tell you the fish, here's the wreck, the fish are going to be over here. The fish are going to be down current of the wreck, somewhere between 100 and 500 feet from the wreck.
And 500 feet's a lot farther away than you'd think.
Yep. Well, the other end of that building is probably what, 250?
Yeah. So I mean, when you, well, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they can be out there to the middle of the parking lot. This is bait. This is just, there's some snappers up in here, but these fish are not going to bite. These fish will bite. So remember that on the full moon, fish are going to be down current and downwind on the leeward side of the wreck. Those are the fish that are going to bite.
Well, they spawn on the full moon.
Right.
And they're releasing their eggs and everything else, and I don't want to get into anatomy, trust me. But down current over the sand. So if there is that much bait there and they're releasing stuff, all this stuff will probably eat it. So I mean, just think about the logic behind it. Like if you were looking for the best success for your offspring or whatever, you probably want to drop it over the sand and let the current take it away from all the bait fish. So it kind of makes sense on those full moon periods. And we kind of saw that coming a little bit building up to it because the snapper just weren't really there. And there's political reasons and strong feelings about opening a season during the spawn, but
I think snappers should be any time but June, July.
agreed. There's almost every one of those fish that you go back and fillet when you do keep them. And keeping fish right now is a whole different thing for me because you see these pictures of guys with tables of 30 king mackerel. I'm like, what are you doing with 30 king mackerel? You're not going to freeze the kings. Like, do you need 30? Like, take a picture, let it go. Like, there's a lot of other stuff. Like, you let a huge trout go the other night. Like, that was one of the cooler things I've seen on Instagram. But every single one of those snappers that we caught on those full moons, and it's charter and it's your fish, and if you want to keep it, like, that's yours, man. You earned it, like, that's your thing. But every single one of those fish that we filleted was full of eggs. And maybe, like, you catch a couple every now and then, that's not a big thing, but when you catch a limit every single day for 55 days, you kind of start to think, like, hey, is this the best thing we can do for the fishery? So just something to consider when you're just gaffing them with a hand gaff and throwing them in the ice to slowly die in there.
How do you tell? I mean, are they fat? How do you tell before you cut them open that they're full of eggs? Can you tell?
They're, no, not really. I mean, they do have a kind of a different feeling in the belly, but it's really, they do spawn on those full moon periods.
And most all of them are going to be pregnant during the spawning time. I mean, just the way it is.
Which is unfortunately when Florida allows you to keep them.
Right.
And they tell us it's about they always want to talk about conservation, and it's really about economics. You know, this is my opinion on fishing. I think snappers should go to 20 inches, groupers should go to 30, and jacks should go to 40, be one per person and open year round.
And triggers should be 12.
And that's just where I think the Gulf, our waters off of Destin is the trigger nursery.
It
Yeah,
is.
so that's why.
Yep.
Exactly. Which is good. And honestly, I'm okay with the regulations and the rules and grouper not being open until September and no spring amberjack. That's fine. You can still catch them, release them the right way, take care of those fish. Let's face it, if you have one of these boats, you're not fishing for sustenance. Like, yeah, it's awesome to catch your fish and eat it. That's fun, but I always joke on the boat, it's a lot cheaper to go to Publix and buy a $20 fillet. It's awesome for that reward, but it's also a fishery that's so good. And I chose to live here because it is good. It's easy, it's fun fishing. But to just take care of the fish for an extra 5 seconds so that you can catch it when you're old like me. And, right? Can I say that now?
Yeah, you're old. So, anybody who doesn't know what this is, you need this. You may not know you need this, but when we're dealing with these big groupers and these big jacks, this goes in the rod holder. You see it on every charter boat. This goes in the rod holder. You lay the rod right here, and you let the rod do the work and take the pressure off your back. Because if you do this fishing in the conditions that we fish in and do this over time, you end up like me, who I have my little stool up here because every once in a while I just have to sit down for a second because my back is so bad. And I go to the pain management doctor every 90 days and get injections in my back until, I got to do that for about another year before the insurance will approve the surgery to fix it. But this will solve those back problems.
Would you say, though, that I agree on fighting a big fish on a heavy rod is tough? I mean, even just reeling up your weight and checking your bait is tough on a big rod. Would you agree, finally, that catching a fish on this is easier? Not easier, but it's less physical.
It is, but that doesn't work in every condition.
Agreed.
There's a lot of days that I am very open to fishing that way when the conditions allow it to be done. But there's not every day that's an option.
Agreed.
But this will save your back. Yes, sir. What is that called? Cheater post. But we sell them at the store. They're like $90. He started making us a new one last year. It's 4 inches shorter for kids and ladies. Normally this one sits up too high in the gunnel for most kids and ladies. We do have a shorter version for them.
You can just hook that, you can just sit on it and lean down.
But it's just something that will help you out a lot. Yeah. And then my favorite little thing, we were out of them at the store today. I couldn't even bring one up here tonight. For most of the time, when we're just catching our normal size fish, the little cushion rod knob that goes on the butt of the rod, that's just killer.
Especially with those ones like that. Yep. Without a.
And these need to be stationed in several places on the boat, all handy to get to. bait, one of the keys that I had in the beginning was variety of baits. And knowing, we all get my first option on bait is the bait boat. I mean, I'd rather go to the bait boat, just buy bait, go fishing. But there's days that they don't have them, the line's too long, for whatever reason, and generally they're just gonna have cigar minnows and herring. Well, I wanna have some threadfin herring, and I wanna have some pinfish, and I wanna have some hardtails, and I wanna stop on like the Max Reef right offshore and catch some ruby lips and some squirrel fish. Because the more variety I have, the better the chances are that I'm gonna get bites that day. Because some days they don't want cigar minnows. Some days they only want pinfish. People laugh at pinfish. I've probably caught more different species of fish on pinfish than anything other bait that I've ever fished with.
Well, just look how much they freak out when you have them in a net. Like when you put the hook in and you let it go, he freaks out. So I think a lot of it's probably a reaction bite from that damn pinfish just freaking out when you drop it down.
The only thing I don't like about pinfish, they're like a little helicopter when they go down, and if you race it to the bottom, your rig will be tangled. You need to control drop a pinfish. Let it go, but control it. Otherwise, you'll just have a nightmare. But there again, all the different places that we can catch bait out around the pass. Rigs. Rigs are important. We talk about this a lot, so we won't spend a lot of time.
I'm holding this because I'm used to this.
But we sell these like little $1.59 bait rigs. And the regular Hayabusa bait rig is like $3.50. And when you're sitting out there by the jetties and one boat is struggling catching bait with these, and the boat beside you is catching these 5 and 6 at a time, they look the same. This one has real fish skin, this one has fake fish skin, and that's the price difference. Now, there is one other option, which is the gold pack. This one is a fluorocarbon bait rig. It costs $1 more. You only need this one the 3 days before and after the full moon. Those 6 days, bait is going to be very hard to catch, period. That's when you want this fluorocarbon bait rig. You don't need that one for everyday fishing, just the regular old green Hayabusa for bait rigs.
And there's been plenty of bait everywhere the past, 3 weeks?
Yep.
And I'm looking over at you because the other day I pulled up and saw you pulling up stringers full of live bait, and I came up and parked right next to you.
Just muscle in and be all right.
There we go, yeah.
I remember that day.
Yeah, you had banana shorts on that day.
Yeah.
Why am I friends with you?
See, you bought the banana shorts.
Yeah, I'm not expecting him to wear on the boat.
Look.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
See, banana shorts. I do too. But D Hooker, tell us about D Hooker.
So, I mean, if you are pulling up stringers of bait like this, the most important thing I tell guys on the boat, like once you get it up close, well, first of all, don't reel the swivel into the rod tip. So just slow down. When you get it up, grab on,
Red bead above your bait rig.
Yeah. When you get it up, I tell everybody, okay, cool, you got the bait up, grab onto the weight. And then as soon as you get that bait, turn that thing sideways and let those fish hang down this way. Because if they're this way, you know that this fish...
Well, you can see that I've grabbed the weight in the picture. I'm starting to pull it and move them around into the boat.
Yeah, just keep everything from getting tangled. Keep things from getting extra hooks in them. And if you've been around sabiki rigs enough, you know these little hooks are sharp. And you go to grab one fish and then something flops and 6 hooks go in your hand. So on my boat now, for a couple of reasons really, very rarely do I touch the fish coming off. If I get the weight and flip these things off, hopefully straight into the live well, but I think A, I don't get the hooks in my hands, and B, I think it's better for the bait. So I'm with you too. If the bait guys are out there, I'm giving them my money, I'm grabbing my bait, I'm running out. Yeah. But I think there is something to be said about catching your own bait for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, well, fresh caught bait is better than netted bait because they haven't been dealt with, so they're going to live better and they're going to be more lively.
I had one the other day. We had 2 flat lines off the back looking for king mackerel, no bites. And we were sitting over a bait. You could see the bait in the water underneath us. Caught some fresh bait, unhooked it, put one on. I reeled in the flat line to check it. You could see my handprint on that herring. Put my other one out, pitched it out, and immediately hooked up to a blackfin.
Yep. And I don't know if you...
We got a hand up.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned on the sabiki rigs, especially the sabiki rigs, because if you don't have a stopper, even me and you will overreel and get half of the sabiki rig in. I use the little BBs with the line
Yep.
as a stopper, and that solves a lot of issues. And it also solves from that your tip getting worn.
You just need to use smaller gear with smaller rod tip. Those grouper rods you're sabiki rigging with are,
You don't have an electric reel,
yeah, electric reel sabiki rig.
80-pound test.
That's a good point. Yeah, just the beads help a lot.
You know, going back to something I said in the beginning, that Alex and the county have done us a tremendous amount of favors fishing. You can notice that this picture here where we're catching bait is not down, it's not at the pass. We're way down the beach. This actually happens to be on the Topsail Hill snorkel reef, but the county has built these little snorkel reefs all up and down the beach. There's like the dolphin and the seahorse and
Turtle.
the turtle and the Henderson Beach. When the bait's not good around the pass, we run down and catch bait off them snorkel reefs. They work great for that.
Well, even that one sonar shot that you showed a second ago that had a ton of bait on it, I've noticed too, and maybe I'm just overthinking it, but sometimes you catch a local bait, drop down, catch some of those baits that are right on the spot you're fishing, and then put him out. Maybe they like him better.
Match
That's
the
where
hatch.
match the hatch. That's where my tuna came from. They weren't caught off of past baits. They were caught off of local baits. So those tuna were probably looking at like, he's not from round here.
You know, if you're going to use the live bait boat,
Stupid.
learn to, you know, if you want better bait over a period of time, you know, learn how to do the live bait boat. You're going to be in line out there, as you're pulling up, hold up your, 1 scoop, 2 scoops, 3 scoops, however many you want. Have your money ready. Ease up beside the live bait boat. They're going to pass you your bait. You put the money in the net, hand it back to them. If you really want quality baits and a few more baits, take the bait guys some donuts, a biscuit, bribe the bait boys. And lastly,
Tip the guys.
tip the guys. And lastly, when you go to leave, as you're here, drive off, pull around, get a quarter of a mile away before you hit those throttles. We're all going to be excited to go fishing, but you wake the bait boat, they remember. And the next time you come by, you may get shorted a few baits.
Don't throw the net back at them.
Yeah.
I'll be in line, I'll see that where they're having a problem, and they're getting their bait in the boat, and their boat drifts off, they start just throwing the bait guys net back.
Yeah.
I don't think those things float.
Yeah.
You sell those guys some nets.
Yeah, I sell them all their nets. Hopefully everybody knows these next few slides are just some different baits. But, herring are my favorite bait, or one of my favorites. Cigar minnows are good. Squirrelfish, I think this is as good of snapper and grouper bait as you can get. Hardtails,
Speaking of herring,
ruby lips.
something that doesn't look like a herring. I just
know,
found these the other
pinfish.
day. Yeah, not a giveaway.
And we all catch a ton of bonitas. That is a bonita fillet is as good a grouper bait as you will ever have. Yes, it attracts a few sharks. It catches other things, but as far as grouper baits, it just about doesn't get any better. I always have bonita chunks in my freezer. I cut and process them, vacuum seal them. So this.
We do have a question going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about bonita fillets. How big bonita fillet would you drop
Depends on how big of a fish you want to catch.
Yeah. The smallest for grouper would be about the size of my hand, and I could easily double that. You do want to trim it out a little bit because it'll be real thick. I trim out about half the meat. It's where I've got the skin and maybe an inch of meat. When I'm making my triggerfish and mingo baits, I make them in like little 1-inch cubes. And I vacuum seal those so that they're perfectly fresh, just like I caught them that day I went fishing. You know, of course, squid, mingo, snappers. Oh, fish bites, if you're, fish bites work great for mingos and triggerfish. It's not messy on the boat. It is more expensive than squid and stuff for bait, but if you don't like making a mess on the boat, I hate squid, you know, fish bites works every bit as good. And a lot of times, because of the little gauze structure inside the fish bites, you can miss a fish 3 or 4 times and still get another 4th bite and catch him. With squid or bonita chunks, you know, he goes, bip. You just need to reel up and get new bait, dude. I tell him all the time, reel up, you ain't got no bait. No, I just got down to the bottom. No, you don't have any bait. I saw it.
It's truth.
What else about bait?
I completely agree with that. I'll do that a lot. You see and it's hard for me to watch somebody on the boat, and you'll see the rod. I've grown to just stare at the rod tip of what people are doing, and you'll see it go once, twice, and then we'll reel it up. I'll go, hey, we're going to try a piece of fish bite, because I do think you get 3 or 4 chances on one of those. Yeah. And sometimes I found earlier this spring they preferred this over some of the bonita.
Mm-hmm. No, fish bites is great. Yes.
So with the fish bite, have you tried the fish gum and what color or flavor?
Fish bites, I would go with just the white squid flavor. Fish gum does not last as long. It does not stay on the hook as good.
I've heard they've changed the first iteration. I agree with. I think it's changed a bit.
It has.
I also think too, though, that when you get in these schools of mingos and triggers, I mean, they're gonna eat anything.
Yeah, they don't really care.
So for me, I mean, if I have, and that's what I have on the boat, like the white squid one, I mean, sounds to me like it would make the most sense. So if I'm in the store and they have white squid, yeah, for sure. On my boat, I've got like orange, it's the same stuff I pompano fish with. I've got orange sand flea, I've got chartreuse shrimp, I've got pink, whatever. Whatever I have on the boat, they'll hit it. And sometimes, I mean, as long as you're paying attention and adapting to what's going on, sometimes it's bonita, sometimes it's fish bites. And also too, if you're 2-hook fishing, put one on the top and one on the bottom and see if you're getting the hooks on, or the bites on one more than the other.
Yes, sir.
So when you're using live bait like cigar minnows, how are you hooking the cigar minnows?
For me, the question was how do you hook a live bait? I go right in front of the eye socket.
Nose ring.
Yeah, if you go in the eye socket, they can flip off really easy. It's just there's a little piece of cartilage right in front of their eye sockets. I go in one side and out the other.
For a live one?
Yeah.
What do you do for a dead one?
Dead one, I go through the bottom jaw and through the top of his nose because it's much more durable that way.
I joke with people on the boat because it's a charter. I'll hook every single bait if I have to. I don't care. But I kind of tell guys like, hey, if I baited that hook, I mean, it kind of counts a little bit as my fish, you know? Like if you want to bait it yourself, go ahead. And like normally guys are like, yeah, don't bait my hook. And I'm like, cool, that just saved a little bit of effort. But I tell guys nose ring or unicorn. And like that sounds stupid, but when you see go through that little flap in the neck, out of the hood, or out of the top of his head, unicorn and nose ring. And tell me next time you're on your boat if you don't think about that.
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear a word you just said.
We tend to have a little bit of trouble finding bait sometimes. We run into a lot of hornbellies and don't really like to use them because the sting works with catfish.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of mixed things on if they're any good as bait or not.
Yep.
A little bit of luck, a lot of them not luck.
He called them hornbellies. Leather jackets?
The little moonfish.
Oh, those moon ponds?
The-
No.
almost never caught anything on those.
And have you found those recently or like later in the summer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've almost caught nothing on moonfish.
I don't know how to. I mean, if they're there, maybe if that's all you're catching on a sabiki rig, I'd probably go look for another spot.
Yeah, we just need to go to a new spot.
Yeah, here we go.
You know, rigs. The old conventional rig in Destin is an egg sinker rig. I don't like. Do I even have a picture of an egg sinker rig?
Oh, this thing is rotten.
I don't even have a picture of one.
You have a lead on you?
Yeah.
What are you doing with this? Where did this come from? That's why you were walking funny earlier?
I knew you were going to ask for a lead. I got you a lead.
What do you do with this? Yeah, it's a good release weight. Yeah.
You know, most of the time, if you have I'm just going to pretend like this is an egg sinker and put it on, but I use a 3-way swivel rig, and there's things that I don't like about an egg sinker rig. For one is,
My rod's not even big enough to hold this.
if we have an egg sinker, every time we want to change the lead side, I have to cut it and rehook it. I don't like that. Also, when we're running from place to place, we got this hooked up here, and then this is around here. If this is an egg sinker, this is beating on my rod when we're running. I don't like that either. You know, an egg sinker is designed that if it sits on the bottom, that it can sit on the bottom and the fish can pull on the line and not feel the lead. Well, we call this bottom fishing. Your lead should never be on the bottom. Just should not be on the bottom. We're fishing up in the water column. So an egg sinker doesn't do anything because if it's not laid on the bottom, the fish can't pull it anyway. So I can have a suspended lead. Well, the length of the leader, a 6-foot leader for snappers, a 10-foot leader for groupers, and a 15 or 20-foot leader for jacks is where the action to get the bite comes from. With this rig, I can easily change my lead size as we change depths of water. And I have people, as we're going from one spot to another, just take the lead off, put it in your pocket. We're going to run 3 miles. When we get there, put the lead back on. Super simple. And I don't have to cut and retie every time I want to change size.
And I think too, especially if you're dropping a dead bait, like I said, unicorn, remember? It's not gonna, even if it's spinning on the way down, I think this setup keeps things from twisting a lot. So I mean, maybe your leader twist, fine, it's on the end of a swivel. Like that's no big deal, but I think this helps keep a lot of that twist away. So very rarely do we get guys reel up with their leader totally twisted up the main line. Right? Mm-hmm. And also,
that weight looks good on that rod.
Yes, it's ridiculous. My rod's gonna break. I don't even know. I didn't know they made them like this. What even is that? But also too, with what I've been doing on black snapper and chumming some of these fish up to the surface, I prefer to fish much lighter. But this time of year in the spring, without the pressure, without the people around, with some wind chop on the surface, with whatever going on, I'll take that lead off. I'll use the exact same setup you're asking earlier about what I was catching them on without a lead. I do it a little different without all the hardware and all that stuff. But this year, all the surface bites I've had, I was like, guys, all right, the red snapper, whatever is on the bottom, we'll catch them off the bottom with the lead on it. Let me just try to see what we can get off the surface with the exact same setup, just without a lead. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of extra hardware in the middle, but you've got a 6-foot leader on it. So, I mean, when that fish hits it, they don't care.
So you're using that 3-way swivel and just not attaching the lead.
I will, and I do that a lot out of laziness. That's not what I would like if we were going only on a top water snapper bite, I wouldn't do that. But 9 times out of 10 on the boat, I'm like, hey, well, let's try it like this real quick. And if not, I'll just clip a lead on it. We'll drop a bait down to the bottom.
How heavy a leader do you use off that rod? When you
If I'm catching them on the surface or on the bottom?
surface?
On surface, last year I was using 30-pound leader, which is sketchy because they have teeth, but you can fight light drag because you've got 80 feet or 70 feet or whatever you're working with. You've got a ton of the water column as a fighting arena.
So it's light as 30 on top, and you earlier said about 60 on the bottom.
And you'll see them. So if they're not hitting, and it's crazy because sometimes if I have 60 on and like a 7/0 hook, they're not going to look at it. They're not going to eat it.
I had huge ones come up to the boat just a week and a half ago.
And the thing is, I just keep backing off and backing off and backing off, and then all of a sudden you're getting these bites. But there's some technique in trying to catch and we had unofficial, the people on the boat wanted to eat it, and I'm like, fine, we're not going to go find a weigh-in station and go through that anyway and send in the line and all that. It was clearly an IGFA world record black snapper on 30-pound test, huge fish on 30-pound leader. So just a ridiculous fish that we were catching off the surface.
You know,
Get this off of my rod. What?
I should have brought you a 40 ounce.
Nose ring.
But I'll basically do that same thing, just without a lead, and just pitch that off the back and kind of feed out line towards it.
You know, when we are truly bottom fishing, 6-foot leaders at a 60-pound for snappers, 12-foot leaders of 100 for groupers, 18-foot leaders of 80 for jacks. That's just kind of a kind of a general something that give you an idea. And as far as lead size, when we're bottom fishing, we talked about being able to be vertical. 1 ounce per 10 feet of water is kind of your general rule of thumb as far as lead size.
One other thing too, and just because I'm already giving out more stuff than I'm comfortable with telling you people because it's my job and it's my trade secret or whatever, you did this like 4 or 5 years ago where you convinced me to use a wind-on leader. Even on my spinning gear, I used wind-on leaders, and it changed the bite completely for me. So even on snapper, all this stuff. So like that black snapper bite, on these, I think I've got a 40, 50-pound wind-on leader. So if the bite got weird or whatever, and they didn't like the 60 with all this hardware on it, I'll cut this damn thing off. I'll put a smaller hook, a much smaller hook on this. And unfortunately, that top water bite, you get a lot of gut hooked fish just because you're using a much smaller hook. But you do that during summer when seasons are open or whatever. Like, why would you chum up red snapper and over the winter, So you get that wind-on leader, I think, especially for amberjack and stuff, changed my bite a lot. And it's just, this one's probably and you can see all the memory on it or whatever, maybe a 20-foot wind-on. Which is weird to think about using a wind-on leader on a spinning rod, but trust me, it helped.
Mingos, triggers. We want to talk about chumming next, or
No.
no?
You're going to do it anyway.
Probably.
I said that to my husband yesterday, and he said he couldn't wait to watch me do it.
There's
chum?
He wanted me, he said, I can't wait to watch you make that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the story about him and the blender, that whole thing?
Oh, it was gross.
I know sometimes on these we get a little long-winded and we talk too much, but there's some good stories mixed in with all this.
Mullet in the food processor.
Squid.
Squid and food processor.
Rotten squid. But, this is our, we all think about bottom fishing. This is the fun way to catch snappers, when you can pick out which one that you want to catch. There's good fish in this picture, and there's a little guy here, and there's these two right here that probably weigh 10, 12 pounds. But chumming is a super effective way, and not only will it bring red snappers and black snappers and triggerfish to the boat,
And sharks.
it'll bring mahis, it'll bring kings, it'll bring blackfin tunas. You're going to catch a lot of other things while chumming. And to me, it's just a fun, easy way of fishing when you can pull up over a spot, whether it's in 300 feet of water or 60 feet of water, you know, and have you, you know, we normally, a lot of times we use herring for our chum because the herring are cheaper than cigar minnows, but cut them up in 4 or 5 pieces, throw a few out, let them drift down, watch the bottom machine, and you'll start to see the fish coming up from the bottom.
And I think a lot of times too, when you pull up to a spot, you'll see it on your sonar. The fish are inquisitive anyway. They'll come up and look at it. So I kind of just throw a handful out and see what happens. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they like it on the bottom.
Yep.
But I mean, it can't hurt to do it. And I'm in the whole idea of having fun. And if I can watch a snapper bite my bait, okay, fine. Like you take me 60 feet into the, and I think that's how we get away with fighting on much lighter gear, because you have so much more of the water column to fight with. But it's just a lot more fun. And if they don't come up to the surface and eat that chum, guess what? You can still drop to the bottom anyway. Put a lead on it and drop it down anyway.
Yep. But chumming is just a super effective way. And then if the fish do get really, really picky, towards the end of snapper season, you know, and when they've been beat down a lot and they're not coming up to the top as much, you know, chum balling is another super effective way of fishing. Same thing, we're going to cut pieces of herring, but we're going to make chum balls.
Tell me that's on one of Mary's plates at the house.
Why?
She
She's-
served
she's
you a piece of
watching.
key lime pie on that later that night anyway.
I'm sure it is. It's probably on her dining room table too. But making chum balls, this is just, I mean, super effective way to trick fish into biting. But we make chum balls out, you know, it's a mixture of frozen chum, oatmeal, fish meal, and it just has to be a consistency that you can get it into a ball where it'll stick together. And you're going to have a leader that's about 20 to 30 feet long and no lead, because this chum ball weighs a little bit. You're already putting your chum out there. You're going to put it in there, put your piece of bait in, mold the chum around it, and then just keep wrapping the leader around the chum ball till you get all 20 feet on there. We're going to kind of cast and pitch it out, and as it's tumbling down, it's going to the bottom, just leaving a trail all the way down, and the snapper just runs up there and eats the whole thing. So there's chumming where you can see them, and this is a way to chum into deeper water and still get the bite.
Just don't pet your dog when you get home, and then go take a shower and go get on the couch and be like, oh, what a good day. And then your dog comes up and smells like bonita or herring chunks or whatever. Just don't make that mistake. My dogs smell terrible.
And this is another little rig that I like using when we chum, is I'll take a basket and I'll put a box of chum in here, and you can cleat this off to the boat, or you can put it on a rope with a lead so it's away from the boat a little bit. But you put a block of chum in there and about a dozen live baits, and just put that in there. You can be fishing that spot. When you get done bottom fishing, drive off, do something else, come back to it, and there'll be mahis and blackfins all over that.
And all the remora you could imagine.
You know that remora are the 2020 version of cobia?
As long as you don't try to convince these people to eat remora.
Darcizzle was eating them.
No. You also tried to convince me to eat squirrelfish.
And they're good.
That was it was terrible. That thing was like this big. It was huge. It was awful.
No, they're little and tender.
Yeah, the big ones, I'm not doing that again.
I think he caught a sea robin.
No, it was 100% yeah, I was like, wow, that's actually big enough. I'll keep that. I'm not doing that again. All right, so we've got...
So here we are, we're 7:15. What about for the next 10 or 15 minutes?
All right, easy. Mingos, 2-hook rigs, cut bait, small pieces. I mean, look at the size of their mouth. They're little tiny. I mean, next time you catch a mingo, look at it and then go, oh, my hooks were way too big and my baits were too big. That's why I wasn't catching good mingos. That's what I think most people fish with hooks way too big, right?
Way too big. And they put the hook on backwards.
Yes.
Let's go to that photo.
And you can see it too. If I do it on this, you can
The hook to do a 2-hook rig, you have to go through the. This is wrong. Going through the back of the eye, it has to go through the front of the eye of the hook for a circle hook to work properly.
Let me see if I can make this happen. So like if that fish comes up and bites it and you just yank it out, it's fine. But if you pull it up real slow, watch this right at the end where it does this that little twist right there and sets the hook in. That only does that if you hook it through the front of it.
And when you start looking at this, the same rig, a pompano rig and a mingo rig is the same thing, it's just bigger. And I swear, every single pompano rig that we sell in the store, the hooks are on backwards from the manufacturer. You have to take the hook off and turn it around. And I've told them and told them and told them. There is no manufacturer that makes a pompano rig that the hook is on correctly. Every single one is wrong. Every brand. I've tried to find a brand that was correct. And it's simple, you just loop the hook off and loop it on the other way. It doesn't take but a second, but every one of them are wrong. But that is a huge key component for catching mingos and triggers.
All right, so mingo triggers, 2-hook rigs, red snapper, chum them up to the surface. If not, drop down. Oh, what about jigs?
So we can talk some about jigs. We talked mostly about jigs last time.
Yeah.
But I know that you
I guess the
you
important-
can't not jig. So.
No, of course I'm gonna jig. I wouldn't do that. I guess the important thing that I would bring up is if you're going to a spot, I think there's an order of operations. So would you agree? Mm-hmm. So I think you get to a spot, I would drop the jig first. And if they're not biting, okay, fine. Maybe throw a handful of chum out and see if they come up to the surface. No? Okay, drop a dead bait. No? Drop a live bait. But I think if you get to a spot, you drop healthy, good live baits without handprints on them that you caught, great, fine. And then you drop a bunch of dead baits or cut baits or jigs or something. If I was a fish, I'd look at that and go, what the hell's that? There's a pinfish over here that's freaking out that looks healthy and fun. I'm gonna go eat that, not this weird thing over here. So I do think there's an order that we go through.
It's definitely, I like the progression part, because if you start with, you pull up on a weed patch and you throw a live bait out there for the first mahi, well, you're only going to catch 2 or 3. But if you start with jigs and then some cut bait and then work your way up, you'll get a mess of mahi most of the time. And same principle works for bottom fishing as it does mahis.
And I'll catch every one of those mahi before I leave. You've started getting better at that. I saw you throwing jigs at mahi last summer.
I'm fine if we catch 10. But I'm not cleaning 50.
We'll catch every single one of them.
Nope. Mr. Conservative over here.
We might let him go.
How heavy a wind on leader do you use
For jigging?
Yeah.
So this rod here had 40-pound wind on, and I broke off. And so Tim actually gave me this, and it was rigged up and ready to go. And I called him, and I was like, what stupid leader did you put on this? And he was like, 40, like that's, and most leader breaks much heavier than it is. He's like, what are you doing with it? It's amberjack fishing. I took that off and put on 60 just because, but it's fluoro. It's like 20 feet of fluoro on it. I like to go lighter, but I don't, did you use that, was it Yozuri? What'd you put on there?
Oh, no, I think it just had straight 40 mono.
Oh, okay. Well, it was 40 mono. Don't do that. No, just get.
Wind on all the way to the hook.
Yeah, I did. So it was it's the same setup I have up here, but to a ball bearing swivel,
Yeah.
to a split ring to my hook. So that way I can just take my split ring pliers and put on whatever jig I want off of that. But same setup, if you want to come look at it. But I would say 40, but he probably put on 20 just to mess with me.
I could have put 125 on there and you could complain like you did about the weight.
No, I think he's messing with me.
40, do you then put a heavier leader at the end of it? Or
No, whatever my wind on is, I'd probably go straight to the,
wind on all the way?
yeah. Unless I'm using one of those three-way swivels, because at that point, like, you're really only using it, I think, for visibility.
Visibility and stretch.
So if I'm using a wind-on leader to a three-way to my leader, I think they're 50, 60, something like that, just for my wind-on, and then from my three-way swivel to my hook is whatever I'm fishing with, 60 or 80. But that's pretty much it. If I'm fishing over 80 and I'm losing fish, then I'm doing something wrong.
So before it gets too late, does anybody have more questions? Yes, sir.
Concerning the terminology, wind-on leader versus top shot, are they the
Same thing. Yeah. Question was difference between a wind-on leader and a top shot. Same thing.
And I fish braid on everything. So it's braided line. I use an FG, a reverse FG, to my wind-on, to either the hook or the swivel or whatever. So my wind-on is just braid to whatever that top shot is.
So could you specify like what species you go to fluoro versus you just staying straight mono on the bottom fish?
So the question was, when would you use mono versus fluoro? I think I use fluoro, I guess the easiest way to word it is in the top 20, 30 feet of the water column. I think once you're down in the bottom, yeah, the science is behind it, it makes a difference in theory, but realistically for me, if I'm bottom fishing in 60 plus, I'm using mono. If I'm not getting bites, maybe I'll try something different. If I start getting bites, I'll adapt, but for the most part, everything I'm tying on is mono if I'm snapper fishing. Unless I'm trying to get them on the surface, and if they're not biting and you can see them, maybe I'll try it. But normally what I've found is it's either hook size or how the bait is presented more so than the line.
And I'm the same way. I typically fish with mono for my leader. I always have fluorocarbon for those days when they're picky, but you should not need fluorocarbon for snapper fishing. Snappers are too easy. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so typically what I do on these, and I'll try to pull this out if you can see it, I'll run a braided main line. So when I tie it to the spool, I'll actually put I'll use what's called an arbor knot with, I don't know, 50 feet of, maybe 20 feet of like 20-pound backing, just in case anything ever, the line starts to spin on the spool or anything. It's basically like taping your line to the spool. This is 40-pound braid. I run 40-pound braid and fill up the whole spool. And then at the end of this, I've got
FG knot there.
I have an FG knot, so braided main line to an FG, and that's what?
20 feet.
20 feet of 50-pound leader, maybe? 50-pound mono to my three-way swivel,
And
and then 6 feet of my, I think that's 60-pound leader. Which seems confusing, but once you rig this up once, I mean, and if you come up afterwards, I'll let you feel the line. You'll feel where it's really chafed, and you'll feel where we've caught some fish. Rarely is it on the wind on. This lasts for a while, and you'll feel it on the leader where the teeth or the scales or whatever has actually made a difference on the leader.
yes, sir.
What hook size do you recommend?
So for snappers, I generally start with an owner 7/0 Mutu light. If we're fishing up in the water column, I'll go down, I could go as far down as a 3/0, but I may fish with a 5. and a lot of times it depends on the size of your bait. We got real small baits. Sometimes a 7/0 hook's too big. We need a 5/0. But I generally fish with an owner Mutu Light 7/0.
It's the same hook that we use for grouper, snapper, amberjack, blackfin tuna,
Tarpon, cobia.
everything.
If you're going after, black snapper though, what would you use?
So I go lighter. I was using 5/0s, but you'll see them. I mean, if you get them up around the boat, you'll see them. And if they're not eating the 5, I back off. But keep in mind too that I think a lot of those ones that I caught on the surface last spring were gut hooked. So just be careful on the size of the hook, because if you're using small chunks, whatever size chunk you're using, whatever you're doing, there's a good tendency that they will swallow that hook too.
Yes, sir.
What's the telltale sign when you're looking at your bottom machine, hard sand bottom versus natural bottom? I had a hard time telling the difference.
So the question was, how do you tell between hard and sand bottom? And I don't really probably have a picture of sand bottom, but it's the return. The deeper this return is on this hard red, the deeper that is, the harder the bottom surface. If that's a real tiny band, that's pretty soft bottom. And you want this little fuzz down here, not these right here, but this little fuzz right here, that's living coral. If you come up on a piece,
you had is good. This other one. One more.
that one,
Nope, keep going. The other way, I think. This one. So see this little green fuzz right here? That's something significant. Like this, to me, red is all sand. It's all just regular. And when you see that, the green fuzz, I tell everybody, I'm like, and we'll get on my boat and I'll go, look at the green fuzz. Because I'm driving in circles with my trolling motor trying to anchor in the right spot. And I'm like, look at the green. And they're like, the hell does that mean? Like, what am I looking at? I'm like, trust me, like that's where they are, right here. And in my opinion of this, obviously this is all history. I think in this image, whoever this was, and it wasn't me because I saw the time, said 8:15 in the morning or whatever. It definitely wasn't me that early in the Gulf. I think somebody drove by and saw that and drifted and turned around and came back and then marked it again. So
I actually took that one.
which is probably what happened. You probably saw that, turned around and came back and anchored on that fuzz. So that's probably the same as that.
That's the roll off just south of the Alaska.
Alaska at 8 a.m.? Crazy people.
I have 4:25.
I leave from 3:31.
I can be there in
You think
an
I'm
hour.
getting to Alaska at 8 a.m.?
It's only 60 miles.
It's 80 miles from 331.
Well, yep. So, I hope everyone learned some stuff tonight. If you have any questions, come
No,
up
we got
here
no-
afterwards.
We do have another
Yep.
question.
I got one question.
Yep.
Badge number 1 and number 8, are they missing? Are they gone?
I think 8 is back in place.
'Cause I went out there 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
looked for number 1,
Yep.
and I was going crazy going
Yeah.
around in circles.
They just haven't had weather days. I'm pretty sure that 8 is back on station, and that we'll get weather later this week, and they'll get 1 put back.
Yes, sir.
So what was it called? It was on the first slide. When you're pulling up to the spot and you're starting to circle, you said there was a software or something that's like a couple $100.
So I run Garmin units on my boat, and I have Garmin SteadyCast. And for me, on my boat, it just is it's the heading lag. So like when you anchor, sometimes on certain boats, when you anchor or spot lock or helmmaster or whatever, your chart plotter, you're sitting still, so your chart plotter can't really orient in the direction it wants to. SteadyCast is like $150, and it plugs onto your NEMA 2000 network, and it'll keep the arrow or the boat on the chart plotter pointed in the right direction. So for me, it requires a little bit of calibration. So maybe like once a month or whatever, it'll have you just drive in a circle so it can learn your boat or whatever. But for me, pulling up to a spot, like you'll get there, you might hit your trolling motor, it'll find the current or wind or current or whatever the driving factor is for your orientation. And then maybe you're like, okay, I think it's like a little bit over there, but then you use your trolling motor and drive over, but you're heading, like, you know, the heading lag?
Sometimes we go to pull up and it's like it's still spinning. It's like you turn with it and then all of a sudden it just like keeps on spinning.
Do you have Garmin's? So Steadicast will help. There's just some, you have to mount it in a certain direction and it will it'll pretty much make sure the icon on your chart plotter is always facing the direction your boat is, which helps.
That Helmmaster, is that vessel specific or manufacturer specific?
Helmmaster is specific to Yamaha. Mercury would be Skyhook. And then some of them still, I think some people still use Optimus 360. You know, so there's several different versions of that. But Helmmaster is a Yamaha product. Yeah, next month we'll be doing tarpon fishing next month, which is a super, super fun fishery. It's all sight casting, shallow water, really fun stuff to do. So we hope everybody come out for the tarpon seminar.
Oh, and we've got the return them right stuff too. So
yeah, we got lots of giveaways, so don't anybody go anywhere.
And I'll show you guys how this stuff works and all that stuff. I mean, we're kind of running late on time, but I'll show you guys how this stuff works because you're legally required to have it on the boat anyway. So whether you have a vent tool or a descending device, a bunch of you guys will leave with, I think I've got like 15 of them here, so it's a good percentage of people. But also too, on that koozie and the business card, if you scan that card or go to the website and fill out the form and watch the stuff, they'll send you the kit anyway. So, I mean, you have to have it on the boat, you might as well get it for free. Although, a bunch of you guys will get them. It's kind of cool. Have you guys seen them before? Yeah. Yeah, so there's two. So I have two of the full kits. These are like $100 kits. I'll give these away tonight. And then I've got a bunch of different kinds of actual descending devices. But basically on these actually come with weights. So basically this goes on your main line and you've got a big weight. But this is called a sequelizer and you clip that onto your snapper. And then on the bottom of it, there's a little knob, and you can turn it to 50, 100, 150 feet, whatever. And then, pressure? Yeah, it's pressure release. So you basically toss that thing over the side, and once it gets down to the right area, this will release and let your snapper go.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, in theory, yeah. And
All
then
right,
the other kind that they have.
Just one moment, guys.
No, here, I'll turn this
Before
off.
we do the raffles, I'm Fallon with Legendary Marine, and before we do the raffles, I just wanted to remind you that on May 12th and May 13th, which is next weekend, we have the Legendary Scavenger Hunt. So if you don't know what that is, you can go on our Facebook. We have videos, we have information, and what it's going to do is you're going to sign up, you're going to get a swag bag, a t-shirt, and 2 tickets to the captain's party. The captain's party is going to be at the yacht club right here. And then Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to email you 20 questions. And from those 20 questions, from 10 to 2, you're going to go in your boat and kind of try to find these places from these riddles. Take pictures with your phone, and then be back at Lulu's, which is going to be the after party and the scoring. And then we're going to go through first, second, third place and just have a good time after. Now, we do have a silent auction that's going on right now. It is live. You're going to see these papers right here on the back tables. You can take a picture of it, or if you want to take one with you. And these little codes, you can scan it with your phone, your camera, and it'll bring you to the sign up, and then it'll bring you to the silent auction. So just a little reminder, guys, it's going to be really fun, good old fun for the whole family. Yeah, and I think May 12th is going to be the deadline to sign up. So, all right. Anything else?
It's all for a great cause.
Yes, it's all benefit. the most important thing, it's all benefiting Emerald Coast Autism Center. So all the proceeds are going to go to them. So that's right there in Niceville. If y'all don't know what it is, we have a little history link on our Facebook. You can kind of get a little download of the information about it. So, and if you have any questions when y'all leave, just get with me and I can help you too. So, all right, raffle time.
Raffle time.
All right.
We've got some exciting prizes today, guys.
A lot of prizes.
There's lots and lots of prizes. You want to pick up?
Sure. All right, I'll pick them, but you're gonna have to announce the name because you know that I butcher it up.
You want me? You want
Yeah.
them to get mad at me?
We can go back and forth.
Okay. Okay. All right. Ready?
What's gonna be the first one?
The first prize. All right. So first prize. Let's go with one of my personal favorites. We've got the shade hat here, and this is going to be for Kim Howard.
Kim? You here?
Oh,
There you go.
Come on down.
I know. All right, Kayla.
All right, we're gonna go again. Are you gonna go ahead and pick the prize?
Yep. Let's see.
I like that one.
Me too. Beach towel.
Legendary Marine Beach Towel. It's pretty in purple and it's got a lot of great fish on it.
Gary Murphy. Woo!
Congratulations.
Just in time for summer. You're welcome, hon.
All right, so next prize, actually, you know what? Let's, do you want to do one of your, do you want to tell us about the decks, by the way?
So we have Calypso Marine Decks. I do, me and my partner, and we do cooler tops and also marine rulers. So this can go on an ice chest or a cooler, and then you can stick the ruler on your boat. It's the Peel and Stick. So it's Marine Matte brand, really good, withstands a lot of things, durability, and cleans really easy. So this is a 45 quart and a ruler in the pretty turquoise and gray.
I'm jealous. I like the turquoise color. That's my favorite one. But instead of it going home with me, it's going to be going home with Glenn Whipkins. Woo! Congratulations.
Here you go, honey. Thank you. You're welcome.
Let's do a double prize here. Maybe the hat and this towel, because they look so pretty together, right? Perfect. You guys are going to have a good trip to the beach this weekend with this. You want to go with that one?
John Dyer.
Oh, woo. Perfect. All right. Let me.
Thank you.
No problem, hon.
All right. Let's see. The next prize, do you want to do another one of this?
Sure.
All right. This one is going to go home and just maybe I get this right. Tom Lagenza. All right.
Is that how you say your last name?
That's it.
Oh.
This ruler's too small.
Too small. What kind of fish you fishing for? No. All right, we're gonna
All right. Well, let's see one of those now.
whoop.
You want to tell a little bit about it while we're going to do it? So as Mark gets this stuff together, I don't know if you heard him earlier,
on your
but
stool.
these are
go
descending
ahead, go ahead.
devices of some degree.
We've
and
talked about these a lot
well,
tonight.
in case they missed you, because some people did walk in
Yeah.
later. This is from the company Return 'em Right, and as of, it was April 1st, correct? That you now are required to have descending devices on your boat if you are going bottom fishing. And so Return 'em Right has sent so many different options to give away. We actually have 10 to give away here. If you are not a lucky winner tonight, the QR codes and the cards that you have on the back of those koozies, if you use that, go to Return 'em Right's website, you'll be able to watch a video, take the class, and
And you actually get this full kit. It's a $100 kit of a weight, a sequelizer, and a descending device, the wire kit here.
You do
I'll-
have to actually watch the video.
You do have to watch
yes.
the video.
You have
which
to
is
know what
good.
you're doing. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, they're not going to give it to you if you don't know what you're doing.
But it's free, so I mean that's a $100 kit. So you guys, it's a really cool thing that they're doing.
And legally, you're required to have them on the boat. So let's go through some of these. We've got 8 different. I'm telling, because I don't want you to come back and go, hey, I got a ticket.
The venting tool is good enough, right?
It is. It is.
So as long as you got something.
Yeah. I just kind of always feel weird. And like normally, I'll stick a hole in it and he'll swim back down. I'm like, oh, I hope he's okay. But you never know. You never know. Yeah.
There's plenty of those.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. But that if you scan that QR code too, and that website explains everything on it. Well, you already won. You're not getting one now. You're not getting one now. Yeah. All right, let's go through these devices first.
All right, so we'll go ahead. The very first winner. Do you want to go ahead and call that out?
Alan Turner.
All right.
Congratulations.
Is that lovely sound?
You know how these work?
Got that for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got
You
it.
got a car?
I don't have anything on me at all.
Talk-
Yeah, I got it in my backpack afterwards.
The next name we have here, and I appreciate your very neat and beautiful writing, and we used to have a sea hunt, and we loved that boat. This is going to go to Christy Fazio.
Nice.
Yay!
All right, let's
Good
roll through these.
deal.
All right. The next one, we will say Sam Laughlin.
Do you know how this works at all?
All right.
Okay. And there's
And
videos
that-
on, if you look on the back, it says, here, click on this link to, or go to this link.
I was about to say, if you guys get these and don't know how they work, come
Yeah.
up later and he can give
Have
you
you
a,
seen these
an
before?
idea on that too.
So basically,
But the
all you do-
next winner is going to be Stu
Yeah, this one's
Lubis.
open. I'll show you this one.
Congratulations.
It's the same as this, really. So basically,
And the next
go.
one
Go
is
on, too.
John Walters.
you hook
John?
a big weight onto this, and you put this on the fish. So like if this is his mouth, and you just kind of put it on, that's going to drag him down to the bottom. And then when you go to lift up, when you lift the rod back up, he comes right off. Yeah. There you go. Yeah,
Hey, don't you live
I do.
see your truck down there?
Okay, so we have 3 more of these. So the next
Yeah, I got
one
every
is
now and
going to
then I
be
watch them
Bruce
there.
Howard.
Okay, yeah, well, I
Bruce?
live in Black Creek.
Nice.
I work at the Publix there,
Yeah.
and when I, not every morning, but in the mornings, I eat breakfast with these old guys.
The next winner is Marty Gasson.
Paper.
If I said that right, maybe?
Yeah, it's a big truck.
Yeah.
The new
Geeson?
one. So I got a new truck in October. It's huge. The big black one. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
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 All right,
Did you-
and
have you
then
seen how they
the
work before?
very next
All right,
winner,
I'll show you on this one. Hey, it
Tom
was nice talking to you,
Comby.
sir. Okay. I'll show you
There,
on this
Tom
one.
Comby.
So
Okay,
this-
good
it's
deal,
similar.
good deal.
This one's a little bit different.
All
It's
right,
got a tuning clip
so
on
now
it.
let's
And if
go
you
back
to
to
the
some legendary
website,
swag really
either one of
quick. You want to
these,
do a hat?
It'll show you a
Yes,
video on how
we're
it
gonna
works.
do a hat here with the rope, little fancy rope on it, and Bruce Goldstein. Bruce,
All right.
you're welcome, hon.
We're gonna do a little swirl. Roll it all back up again.
And then we're gonna do another cooler top and a ruler.
This is going to go to Aaron Doherty. All right, nice. Oh, you're welcome.
go, no problem. And we got one more hat
All right.
left.
This is going to Hayden Malloy, maybe? McCoy? Okay, to see that? Yes. Okay, Hayden. Yes, I will go with it. Oh, your email address is easier. Congratulations.
Sometimes we got to decipher a little bit. No problem, no problem.
So the last two prizes that we have are going to be the actual, the full kits, and we can let Mark tell you a little bit about that so that you know how they work. But these are going to be the last two prizes. So these are the actual $100 kits that you would get right now, rather than having to go through the class, because you're going to have to listen to him talk about it
and
anyway.
I'll show you how they work too if you win.
All right.
Well, that's a big spin, Kayla.
I know. Should
All right, and the winner is...
Winner number one is Marshall Henley. All right, there you go. Front
Sir?
row.
I'll show you how they work if you want to do it. Yeah, I'll show you.
All right,
Or, did I just show you? Okay, perfect. You're the expert now.
the second and final winner.
Yeah, I feel like
And while you're
I
looking-
feel like we need a drum roll for this one.
While you're looking, I do want to say thanks to the guys from Return 'em Right, Nick and
Yes.
Sarah, for sending us all this stuff. And
Yes.
obviously with those codes, you guys can go get your own kits anyway, so
All right.
pretty cool.
Mixing it up real nice in here.
Oh, just pick one. These people want to go home.
Brandon Moore. Brandon Moore. Woo, there you
Perfect.
are. Come
Good
on up.
job. Nice.
All right, Tim, Mark.
You know how these work?
Guys, again, thanks for coming.
Perfect. It's easy enough. Easy enough.
Yes, thank you
Yes, sir.
so much, guys. And the next one's going to be June 6th,
They
Tarpon.
talked about it.
That'll be an exciting one.
It's okay. I'll throw it on my stuff. It's okay.
What's this twist on thing you were talking about?